Arab millionaire laughs until this cleaning lady's daughter speaks 9 languages at 3 a.m. In the glittering heart of Palm Springs, the sun hung low, casting an amber glow over the opulent mansion that belonged to the notorious Arab millionaire, Khalid bin Abdul. Wealth dripped from his walls, crystal chandeliers that sparkled like diamonds and a pool that glistened like liquid sapphire. Laughter erupted from a cluster of guests as they clinked their champagne glasses, oblivious to the unsettling storm brewing just beneath the surface of their lavish party. It was a gathering of the elite, where laughter could easily drown out the whispers of secrets. But as the clock struck 3, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter turned to muffled confusion when a sound broke through the melodic and eerie echo of a girl's voice floating down the grand staircase. Young Bina, the cleaning lady's 15-year-old daughter, stood alone in the shadowy corner of the expansive foyer. Her deep brown eyes sparkled with an unusual intensity, as if they were portals to a world that defied comprehension. With an odd confidence at such a late hour and among such powerful people, she began to speak. "Bonjour, guten Tag, ciao, and hello," she announced confidently, her voice a mix of sweet and chilling. Guests turned, their faces flickering between amusement and bewilderment. What started as a joke, a tickling curiosity about the little girl who always seemed to blend into the background, soon became a shocking spectacle. Who was this girl? How did she come to know 9 languages? Fear coursed through the room, mingling with the thick scent of expensive cologne and cocktail refreshments. It was as if time stood still, her words lingered heavy in the air, bubbling with mystery that wrapped around each listener like a blanket soaked in ice. Each language rolled off her tongue like a gust of wind, stirring something deep within the hearts of the partygoers, something primal and daunting. The laughter quickly turned to whispers and gasps. A group of men exchanged wary glances, their mouths agape in stunned silence. "Is this some kind of prank?" A woman murmured, her hand pressed to her chest, struggling to catch her breath as her eyes darted around, seeking answers. But none could be found in that surreal moment. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The girl's voice cut through the silence once more, her eyes flashing with an odd light, as if tiny galaxies swirled within. "I know your secrets," she said, her words like smoke curling in the air. In that moment, the tension was palpable, every breath felt shallow, every heartbeat echoed loud against the elegant backdrop. Khalid's laughter died in his throat, his face pale like the moon rising against the dark sky. The glittering allure of his world suddenly seemed frail and fragile. Who was this girl? What did she mean? The guests glanced at one another, the wave of uncertainty crashing down around them like a relentless tide. Bina took a step forward, her voice low, filled with an intensity that sent chills racing down spines. Would she reveal a truth too immense to bear? The mansion, once a palace of warmth and laughter, now felt like a cage brimming with secrets and the haunting ghost of what lay hidden in the past. And just as all eyes were fixed on her, waiting, breath held and hearts racing, the lights flickered violently. The laughter from the party seemed a million miles away, and darkness swept over the room like a predator ready to pounce. What would happen next? Would Bina unveil the mysteries hidden among them, or would the darkness swallow her words whole? Silence engulfed the mansion, leaving an oppressive weight that settled heavily on every shoulder. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows that danced on the walls, as if the house itself were alive, quivering with anticipation. Bina stood perfectly still, her gaze unwavering. A hushed murmur rippled through the crowd, weaving a current of unease. What is happening? Is this part of the show? A sharply dressed woman whispered, clutching her jeweled neck. Her mascara began to smudge under the sudden onslaught of fear. Khalid, now visibly uneasy, took a step forward. "Child," he called out, his voice trembling. "This isn't the time for games," but Bina raised a hand, silencing him effortlessly. "You don't understand," her tone shifting, powerful and haunting. "Games are for those who can afford to play." A collective shiver ran through the audience. Khalid's retreat into silence only magnified the tension. What came next would alter the trajectory of the night, a prelude to chaos. With a sudden intensity, Bina switched languages fluidly. Telegram, Despero, and danger. The words tumbled like stones from a cliff, echoing ominously in the dim light. "Every language I speak, their essay story tucked away in the whispers of those who've come before." From the back of the crowd, a bearded man whispered sharply to his friend, "Is she saying what I think she is saying? She can't know the thought that gripped their minds wasn't just fear, but dread. Secrets lived and breathed among them, deeds done in the cloak of night that would shatter their pristine lives if revealed." They darted glances filled with suspicion and rising panic. Was this child a threat? An oracle of misfortune? Bina stepped closer, her voice now almost a whisper, reverberating through the cavernous space. "You've all gathered in a house built on lies, and I hold the keys to each door that has been locked." Khalid's eyes darkened, a spark of rage igniting beneath the surface. "You dare threaten me?" He spat, but the trembling in his voice betrayed him. "Yes," she replied, her expression unfaltering. "You never listened to my mother, the one you thought was just a cleaning lady. But she told me your secrets every night." Gasps erupted, fans fluttered in shock, but Bina pressed on, unyielding. She spoke of debts and deals, of betrayal and blood. The words punctured the air. "Your fortune can buy many things, Khalid, but it can't buy the past." Each syllable fell like a hammer, smashing their pretensions. The grand estate transformed into a battleground of revelations. Khalid's face contorted, rage and horror battling within. "No, you're lying." His voice was suddenly ragged. "I will not let you ruin me." A sudden tumult of anger ensued. A group of well-heeled guests surged forward, threats looming, but Bina stood her ground like a lighthouse in a storm. "They won't listen until it's too late," she urged, the fierceness of her voice slicing through the chaos. She was no longer a mere girl, she was a force of nature. Just then, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into pitch-black darkness. Panic seized the guests, screams mingling with hoarse demands for calm. Then, an unearthly sound shattered the night, a crack, like thunder, or a gunshot. The lights burst back on, revealing a scene frozen in time. Bina stood where she had been with a tangible shimmer around her, while scattered champagne flutes lay shattered on the marble floor. And beside Khalid, someone lay crumpled against the wall, a shadow of betrayal etched into their still face. Bina's gaze flicked around the room, aware that she had just ignited a flame that would lead to untold consequences. "Maybe you should listen to me," she whispered, the weight of her words thick in the air. Who was the unconscious figure? What dark truth was now uncovered? As the cries of the guests echoed in her ears, one question loomed larger than the rest: what had Bina unleashed upon them all? The room buzzed with chaos, a cacophony of shrieks and hushed whispers engulfing the once opulent space. Guests reeled back, their posh attire a stark contrast to the stark reality now laid bare before them. The crumpled figure lay like a discarded marionette, betraying the friendships and alliances forged in wealth and greed. Bina's heart raced, each beat thudding against her ribcage like a drum. She had crossed an invisible line, delved into a darkness she only half understood. As the murmurs turned to accusations, she centered herself, drawing on the strength of her mother's wisdom, the stories she shared late at night. "Is he dead?" A voice piped up from the crowd, a sharp edge of panic slicing through the air. Khalid, visibly shaken, knelt beside the figure, grappling with disbelief. "No, no. He can't be." His hands trembled as he reached out, brushing against a pulse point barely there, but there nonetheless. The atmosphere shifted, grandeur deteriorating into desperation. Bina stepped forward again, the gravity of her demeanor anchoring the frayed nerves of the onlookers. You've spent so much time building facades around your lives that you've forgotten what's real. This, she gestured towards the figure, this is what happens when you ignore the hidden truths. When you cage the past, it claws back. Panic evolved into outrage, guests looked to Khalid for direction, confusion written all over their faces. This is her doing. An older woman with a tremor in her voice accused, pointing a polished finger at Bina. She cursed us. Make her leave. Fear transforms some into monsters. Within seconds, pulses quickened, voices escalated, with accusations of witchcraft and dark gifts flying through the air like daggers. Bina's eyes flared, the murk of their judgments only intensifying her resolve. She fought back against the swell of fury. You all feared the truth far more than me, she declared, pivoting to face them fully. It would have been better if none of this ever came to light. Khalid shouted from his prone position, stop. This is madness. Frantic breaths surrounded him like a storm, but his voice held a sliver of authority. Madness is what you've sold your souls for. Bina shot back, locking eyes with him. You trapped yourselves within walls of gold, but those walls can crumble. All it takes is one whisper, one revelation. For a moment, silence reigned. The gasping breaths of the guests replaced the frantic chattering, now gripped with the weight of her words. They were face to face with their own demons, the very fabric of their lives threatening to unravel, then slowly, like the first crack of dawn, a few guests began to murmur among themselves, seeds of doubt sprouting in their minds. Bina, Khalid started, an unusual tremor in his voice. What do you know about us? I know everything, she replied resolutely. I know about the partnerships you forged in darkness, the sacrifices made for power. I know how high a price is paid for keeping your slate clean. Bina could see it in their faces, the flicker of realization sparking and igniting. The secrets they thought buried were clawing their way to the surface. Panic began to brew anew, the previously united front fracturing, the crowd became restless, glancing nervously at Khalid, at one another. Whispers turned to heated debate, and Bina knew she had just stirred an awakening. As she surveyed the room, a bolt of panic struck her as Khalid started to rise. His face twisted, anger and fear kneading deep scorches into his heart, and then came an unmistakable scoff from the back of the room, deep and low. A figure stepped forward, shadowy and imposing, eyes glinting with a predatory glimmer. You dare unravel our world, girl? Bina's chest tightened, recognition slashing through her like a jagged blade. You, she breathed, you shouldn't have come. The tension reached a boiling point, a storm was brewing. Secrets and shadows danced precariously close to the surface, threatening to upend their carefully curated lives. As the room descended into chaos once more, Bina stood at the eye of the storm, the realization weighing heavy on her. What had she just unleashed, and was she prepared for the reckoning to come? Bina's breath hitched when the figure stepped into the dim glow of chandelier light. It was Daud, the man whose twisted games had ensnared so many within this gilded cage. A chill crawled up her spine as his sneer widened, thrusting her into the eye of a tempest she could scarcely comprehend. Well, he mocked, voice dripping with condescension. The little girl thinks she has found her voice. But you're shouting into the void, Bina. Look around. He gestured dramatically, his grimy fingers brushing over the scattered guests. These people will turn against you in an instant, as they always have. His words struck a nerve, and Bina's heart raced again, not just from fear but igniting a flicker of defiance deep within. She opened her mouth to retort, but words eluded her. Instead, she glanced toward Khalid, a surge of uncertainty thrumming through her. Would he stand beside her, or distance himself from the onslaught? Khalid was still teetering, fighting disbelief. Leave her alone, Daud. You don't have to do this. His voice was shaky but louder than any previous sound, a desperate plea amid the chaos. Daud's laughter slammed back at them like a door shutting. Do you really think this is about her? He stepped closer, sunlight glinting off his watch, giving him a godlike glow dazzling and deadly. This is about power. And she's just a pawn. Bina pressed her lips together, grappling with fear and anger. You can't control the truth, Daud. It will slip from your fingers, even now. His eyes flashed, and the laughter fell away. Ah, the naive child speaks. Do you really think any of these people care about truth? He leaned into the silence, letting the words sink deep. They care about their secrets. They care about their safety. You've given them a glimpse, but the moment you cross this line, they'll chase you down. He gestured at the guests, whose eyes flared with uncertainty and anger. The mighty facade was cracking, and Daud was right. Fear is a powerful weapon. A few guests shifted nervously, whispering harsh judgments. Doubt hung thick in the air. Bina locked her gaze on Khalid, pleading for him to see the truth of it. What do you risk? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising tide of voices. Is it worth it? Khalid's brow furrowed. She could see the battle raging within him, a tempest of loyalty and doubt. She could only hope he would choose truth over fear. The dead man, Daud suddenly interrupted, plowing through the tension, is but a warning. He spread his arms wide, enjoying the panic he had stirred. What else will he lose if you all continue this charade? Relationships? Power? Life? Murderer! A woman screamed, her voice slicing through the noise, pointing a trembling finger at Daud. Chaos ensued. Voices rose into a pitch, a tidal wave of accusations and cries for justice flooding the room. Enough! Khalid shouted, the anger erupting from his chest. He stepped between Bina and Daud, the tension hanging in the air, palpable and desperate. We can't let this turn violent. This isn't the way. Bina could feel the riptide of emotions, fear and fury colliding. The guests were restless, eyes darting back and forth like a storm about to break. Daud reveled in it all, smirking at Khalid's attempts to restore order before zeroing in on Bina once more. Your precious truth is a double-edged sword, Bina, he warned, advancing, closing the distance between them. And every cut tastes of betrayal. Bina's heart thundered. You will fall as you've always done, Daud, she countered, though her voice quivered. Would it be her truth that broke them? Or would it bind them all to the shadows? A sudden crash broke the moment, a champagne glass smashing on the marble floor, shards sprawled like secrets waiting to be uncovered. The room held its breath, the world standing still for a moment. But the silence was deceptive, and as the crowd shifted restlessly, Bina knew one thing for certain. Everything was about to change. But would they be ready for the reckoning that followed their truths, with uncertainty swirling thick around them? The revelation trembled on the cusp of formation. In that charged atmosphere hung a question: would they unite against the monster, or would they let fear rule them once again? The air crackled with tension as Daud's mockery echoed in Bina's ears, drowning out the heavy silence that followed the shattering glass. Each shard scattered light like the broken dreams of those too afraid to speak. Bina could feel the weight of the crowd bearing down on her, eyes filled with disgust, pity, and fear. Whose side are you on, Khalid? Daud taunted, his voice rising above the murmurs. Don't you see? It's easier to stay silent and live a comfortable little life than to start a war you can't win. Khalid stood firm, jaw clenched, trying to shield Bina from the chaos around them. The conflict between his loyalty to friends and the idea of truth was playing out in his eyes. Bina could sense his inner turmoil, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. You don't have to endanger her, just walk away. Khalid pleaded, his voice strained. This isn't worth it. No, Khalid. Bina stepped forward, feeling a rush of resolve. She could not let Daud continue to weave his web of lies. Her heart raced, but she lifted her chin, echoing the fire she felt building inside her. This is exactly what I've spent my life preparing for. Prepare to die, you mean? Daud sneered, his amusement tinged with menace. You think they'll rally around you, little girl? You'll be alone in this when the dust settles. I won't stand by while you destroy lives. Bina shot back, her voice surprising even herself. The electricity in the room intensified as the guests strained closer, wanting to witness the showdown, needing a resolution to the fears rising high. One older man, emboldened by her courage, shouted, "She's right. We deserve to know the truth." Others stirred, murmurs rising like a tide, chanting for transparency, a cautious rebellion against Dowd's reign. Fools! Dowd snarled, but a crack appeared in his bravado. For the first time, he looked less like a predator and more like a cornered animal. You think you're safe? You think this will end well? Bina felt a rush of cold air, wrapping around her like a shroud of uncertainty. The moment hung heavy, charged. Then it struck her this was the time to dare. What secrets do you hide, Dowd? What will you do to protect yourself? His face twisted in displeasure, but it was the flicker in his eyes that caught her breath. There lay something darker, a wound that could be exploited. You're playing in the lioness den, Bina. It won't end well. Stirred by her spirit, voices raised around the room, quickly turning from fearful whispers into shouts of agreement. They had been fed on fear for too long. Bina could harness this wave, ride the storm to expose Dowd for what he was. She took a step closer, her heart pounding as she ventured into the unknown. Together, we can take him down. She urged, emotion pouring from her into the crowd. You know what he is capable of. If you choose fear, we're lost forever. But then, an ominous quiet drifted over the guests, a chilling realization dawning upon them. The fear of Dowd morphed into something tangible, like a looming shadow darkening the room. Khalid reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. Bina, be careful. He is dangerous. Dowd's laughter shattered the fragile unity suffocating the air. Oh, how naive you all are. He stepped closer to Bina, eyes piercing, his voice low as if sharing a secret. You really think they'll fight for you? They will throw you to the wolves to save themselves. Just as they always have. Fear rippled through the crowd, and Bina's heart dropped. Suddenly, the faces around her looked uncertain, the flicker of rebellion snuffed out. No, she whispered, an icy panic rising within. Had she miscalculated? Could she truly trust in the goodness of those gathered here? Would they support her unearthing the truth, or would they return to their safe, woven lives, leaving her to confront Dowd alone? As the air thickened, she realized she was on the precipice of something monumental. A singular heartbeat echoed in her ears. A decision would need to be made, and fast. Would she push for the truth, risking everything, or would she bow down and retreat? Into the shadows. Bina stood tall, a fierce determination blooming. Everything was at stake. Would they stand strong or stand down? And then, there it was, a loud knock on the doors at the back of the ballroom. An unexpected arrival. A rumbling of fate. The crowd turned as one, eyes darting toward the source of the sound, fear and anticipation rising. What would step through those double doors? And would it tip the balance towards hope or despair? A hush fell over the room, squeezing the air out of Bina's lungs as all eyes fixated on the double doors. The world around her blurred, tension crackling like static in the air, the crowd caught between trepidation and curiosity. She could feel her heart hammering in her chest, each beat echoing like a countdown. Khalid's grip tightened on her wrist, his eyes wide with fear. Bina, we can leave. We don't need to face whoever that is. But Bina was rooted to the spot, a whirlwind of anxiety and hope battling inside her. The doors creaked open slowly, as if approaching some tragic climax. Instead of a grand entrance, a figure stood silhouetted in the light, slender, shrouded in shadows but unmistakably strong. The tension twisted in Bina's stomach as a woman stepped into the ballroom, a boldness radiating from her like a beacon. Amira? Khalid gasped, recognition flooding his features. Bina blinked, her mind racing. Amira, Khalid's sister, had been missing for months. The rumors had circulated, whispers of her involvement with an underground network, but no one had concrete proof. The knot in Bina's stomach tightened. Why was she here now? Enough. Amira's voice rang out, cutting through the confusion. I've come to expose Daud for who he is. Enough of this charade. Gasps rippled around them, disbelief mingled with renewed hope. Daud's expression morphed from surprise to anger, his ice-blue eyes narrowing. You shouldn't meddle in things you don't understand, Amira. You're a child playing in a world of wolves. I'm not your child anymore, Daud, Amira shot back defiantly, stepping forward. You've masked your corruption for too long. People deserve to know the truth. Bina's heart raced at Amira's bravery, but deep down, an ache of uncertainty lingered. Would this brave act awaken solidarity in the crowd, or would it deepen the fear that surrounded them? Shut her up. Daud barked suddenly, turning on the crowd with venom. You know what happens to traitors. The threat hung in the air like dark smoke. Eyes darted between Daud and Amira, a silent battle for loyalty. Bina instinctively moved to stand beside Amira, pulling strength from her presence. We cannot let him intimidate us any longer. She shouted, emboldened by the connection they shared. We deserve to be treated as equals, not pawns in his twisted game. Together. Amira chimed in, raising her fist defiantly. We can't stay silent. The truth has power. Slowly, more voices emerged from the crowd, a chorus of agreement filling the space. Hands raised in solidarity, eyes burning with renewed strength. Bina felt the tide shifting, hope rising with every word exchanged, but Daud, ever the predator, seized the moment. Foolish fools. He roared, stepping back, accentuating the space as he scanned their faces. You really believe this will end well? You're surrendering your safety for an illusion. Bina's mind raced. Would they truly rally together, or retreat into their inaction? And there, in that flicker of fear, the crowd faltered. Bina remembered Daud's words, a reminder of their vulnerability. Would he use their bravery against them? A sudden bang erupted as Daud slammed his fist against a table, knocking over glasses and sending a ripple of shock through the crowd. You want the truth? You'll regret attempting to pry it out of me. In that moment, Bina realized the danger they all faced. Daud wasn't just a villain to be confronted, he was a monster capable of terrible deeds. The air throbbed with danger. I will protect us. Bina cried, her voice trembling but resolute. No matter the cost. But with her declaration, doubts surged. Would they trust her? Was she strong enough to face the storm brewing ahead? Then, a sudden voice emerged from the back. A shaky, older woman spoke up, I've seen terrible things because of him. The crowd turned, whispering in disbelief. The woman stepped forward, trembling but determined. I know the truth. Bina's heart raced. What did she know? Would this revelation cement their cause or plunge them deeper into darkness? What skeletons would tumble out of Daud's powerful closet? And would they be able to withstand the truth? The room buzzed as the older woman took center stage, her frail frame trembling with gravity. Eyes locked onto her, Bina felt a mix of fear and anticipation rippling through the crowd. This moment was pivotal, yet perilous. Speak. Daud growled, his voice low and threatening. What could you possibly know that I haven't erased? I know what you did. The woman's voice, shaky yet fierce, cut through the doubt hanging over them. I've seen people suffer because of your schemes. Families destroyed while you played your games. The crowd gasped again, a wave of disbelief crashing over them. Bina's stomach twisted, the truth was surfacing, and it was ugly. What do you mean? Bina implored, her heart racing. Tell us everything. We need to know. Daud's lip curled into a sneer, his confidence faltering. Words are just words, he spat, but there was a crack in his bravado. An old woman's ramblings can't touch me. But the woman pressed on, eyes gleaming with the fire of retribution. I've seen your dirty deeds, Daud. The money laundering, the threats, the people who disappeared. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mixture of horror and disbelief. Bina felt the air thickening as people around her began to shift in apprehension. They were on the precipice of something dangerous. People like Amira, the woman continued. She didn't just get lost, did she? No, she was taken. Just like the others. You hid her away because she threatened your empire. No. Khalid shouted, his voice cracking. That's not true. Amira wouldn't just disappear. Wouldn't she? The woman retorted, her voice strong against Khalid's denial. You only see one face of this man, but he wears many masks. Daud's countenance darkened, his expression dangerous. Enough. You think revealing your so-called truth will save you? You will regret this, every one of you. The tension in the room escalated. Bina's pulse raced, her mind screaming for clarity. This wasn't just a battle of words, it was a fight for survival. Murmurs spread among the crowd as they debated whether to stand with Amira, the woman, and Bina, or retreat from the impending storm Daud unleashed. Listen. Bina implored, stepping forward, her voice cutting like a knife. Are we going to let fear dictate our lives? If we don't fight together, we will all be pawns in Daud's game. This is our moment. Her passionate words ignited a fire among a few, hesitant faces lighting up with tentative resolve. They remembered the years of manipulation, the silent suffering they had endured. A ripple of courage washed through the crowd. Amira's not lost, she's fighting. Someone shouted, raising their fist high. Together, we can push back, Amira said, her voice lifting, daring and defiant. Daud thinks he can silence us. He thinks we will cower in our shadow, but we're stronger than that. But as the crowd began to rally, a shiver of doubt tugged at Bina's heart. Could they really unite against this force? Daud was dangerous, and desperation twisted people in ways they couldn't predict. Then, just as hope threaded through their ranks, Daud's laughter filled the room, cold and mocking. You foolish sheep. You are underestimating the power I hold. How many of you are truly willing to risk everything? His icy gaze swept over them, a predator sizing up prey. A chill cascaded through Bina's veins. For every person finding strength, how many more would turn back? Uncertainty lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. And just like that, the hint of unease hung over the moment, like a storm about to break. What was the true price of opposing him? And who among them might break under Daud's relentless pressure? As the tension thickened, the fate of their fragile unity dangled in the balance. The atmosphere crackled with tension, and the crowd swayed like palm trees in a storm. Bina's heart hammered against her chest as she tried to lock eyes with Khalid. She needed him to see that this was their chance. That they had a shot at exposing Daud's tyranny. Are you with us? She shouted, her voice rising over the murmur, but the faces around her were still uncertain, wavering between fear and hope. Daud's smirk deepened as he picked at the thread of their resolve. Tell me, he taunted, how many of you have the stomach to stand up to me? How many? His condescending laughter echoed, sending shivers through the crowd. Just then, a voice broke through the din, shaky but clear. Wait. What if she's telling the truth? It was a young man, barely in his 20s. The crowd turned toward him, curiosity and disbelief battling for attention. Did you know kids go missing? Families torn apart. Daud has lied to us for too long. His face was flushed with emotion. A few murmurs of agreement followed. Bina felt something shift. The seed of rebellion buried deep in their hearts was starting to sprout. It was faint but visible, like green shoots pushing through barren soil. More voices began to chime in. Yeah. Someone else yelled. We're tired of living in fear. Daud's expression darkened. You think you can challenge me with childish bravado? I have more power than you could possibly imagine. He leaned closer, his voice a menacing whisper. You will all suffer if you keep this up. That flicker of courage wavered again. Bina could see the doubt creep back into their eyes. No. She shouted, her voice ringing with steel. This isn't just about Daud versus us. It's about our lives. Our loved ones. We've already lost so much. She glanced at the older woman, whose face was a mask of resolve. If we stay silent, we lose everything. Amira and countless others deserve better than being silenced. Khalid stepped up beside her, his features tight with emotion. Do you remember the last time we let fear control us? It took everything from us. His throat filled with emotions, but he pushed through. We owe it to those who are gone to fight for them. A ripple of energy surged through the crowd as they began to nod, faces hardening with purpose. Together. Someone else shouted. We will fight together. Just then, a loud crack of thunder shook the building, and the lights flickered ominously. It felt as if the storm outside approved of their rebellion, matching the wild beating of their hearts. Daud, however, was unyielding. This is a mistake, he warned, the danger thick in his voice. You aren't prepared for the consequences. I will destroy you. A tall, imposing figure moved forward, a man Bina hadn't noticed before, eyes shrouded in shadow. Not if we stand united, he declared, revealing his strong frame as he stepped closer. I've seen Daud's hand in the shadows of our lives. And I refuse to allow it to continue. The crowd gasped. It was as if a dam had broken. But before they could fully rally, Daud snapped his fingers. Shadows shifted as men in dark suits moved in, ready to defend their master. Enough of this. Daud snarled, anger boiling in his eyes. What do we do now? Bina's voice trembled, a twinge of fear threading through her adrenaline-fueled resolve. The electricity in the room surged like wildfire. She could feel the crowd's collective heartbeat, the wild rhythm of courage and fear mesh into a singular force. Would they stand and fight? Would they run? The moment hung like a noose, tight and suffocating, but just as the crowd began to stir, determined to push back against Daud and his henchmen, Bina felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. Glancing down, her heart dropped. A message flashed on the screen, "You're in danger. Get out now." An icy realization washed over her. Who was she truly fighting for? And what hidden truths still lurked in the shadows? With that urgent warning simmering in her mind, her eyes darted back to the chaos around her. Time was ticking, and choices had to be made. Would they escape this confrontation, or was it too late for anyone to turn back? The air thickened with anticipation as Daud's men closed in, leaving Bina wondering if their fight would even begin. The crowd surged forward, carried by a mix of fear and hope. Bina could see Khalid beside her, determination burning in his eyes. But doubt weighed heavy in her heart. The threat of Daud's men loomed, and the storm outside roared against the walls. Stay together. She shouted, adrenaline firing her words. She turned to the imposing figure who had stepped forward. What is your name? Who are you? Jonas, he replied, unflinching. I'm here to help. At that moment, the ominous glint in Daud's eyes told her he saw everything unfolding like a game. He stepped back, allowing his henchmen to encircle the crowd. The movement created a cage, closing in tighter. Don't let fear make your decisions, Jonas said, his voice booming. Think of the lives you could change. Your children, your families. Think about our children. Bina cried out. The crowd echoed her sentiment with murmurs of agreement. She could feel the energy building, swelling like a tide ready to crash. Your defiance is misplaced. Daud called, his tone venomous. You'll pay dearly for this, every last one of you. Enough. Khalid shouted. He stepped forward, challenging Daud's authority, drawing the attention of the crowd. Fear rippled through Bina, but she stood her ground. We've suffered enough. You can't keep wielding terror over us. Fool. Daud spat, a twisted grin revealing his malice. I'll bury your rebellion in blood. The men in suits eyed each other, tension thick like fog. Bina felt her pulse quicken. Had they reached the point of no return already? Jonas, any ideas? She asked, desperation creeping into her voice. We push back. He said decisively. We can't show them fear. The moment we do, we lose this fight. A chant started, low at first, then rising into a fever pitch. No more fear. No more fear. The chant spread like wildfire, igniting the crowd completely. They were reclaiming their power. Bina joined in, her voice fierce, reminding herself of the children, the families torn apart. This was for them. Suddenly, a sound like a gunshot pierced the air. A loud clash of metal echoed as chairs were thrown and chaos erupted. A man had launched himself at the closest guard, and that single act of defiance inspired others. Fists flew, and bodies collided. Go. Get to the door. Bina yelled, the fear for their safety washing over her like a cold wave. Khalid stayed at her side, determination written all over him as he shoved toward the exit. She struggled to keep pace, dodging flailing arms and flying objects. Jonas, we need you. She shouted, glancing back just as he shoved someone out of his way. I'm right behind you. But just as they reached the door, Bina felt strong hands seize her shoulders. She gasped, turning to see one of Daud's men, eyes ablaze with fury. Let her go. Khalid cried, lunging at the man. Bina's heart raced. The reality of what they were facing crashed into her mind. Daud wasn't he just a tyrant, he was a man willing to kill to maintain his reign. And then, in the thick of battle, the crowd began to split. The voices of dissent faded into the noise. Would they escape? Jonas reached the door first. Go. He urged, but Bina hesitated, torn between fleeing and the knowledge that so many still floundered in the chaos. Suddenly, Daud's icy laugh rang through the air, a cold reminder of the power he wielded. You think you can just leave? We're just getting started. A flash of unyielding rage lit her veins. She wasn't just running, they were fighting for a future. The pulse of the crowd echoed her resolve. She knew then what they needed, a plan. Together. We take back our lives. She yelled at the top of her lungs. This ends now. And just as the tide began to turn and they pushed back against the closing darkness, a horrifying sound erupted. A shot rang out, reverberating in her chest. Bina's heart sank as a figure stumbled, dropping to the ground. Was it too late for anyone to turn back? The room erupted into chaos, screams slicing through the air like blades. Bina's heart raced, her mind a whirlwind of disbelief. The lifeless body lay on the marble floor, a stark contrast to the opulence of Khalid's mansion. A cold wave of panic surged through her, each heartbeat slamming against her ribs. Had they brought this devastation upon themselves? Go, Bina. Khalid yelled, his voice strained, grabbing her hand to pull her away, but she felt rooted to the spot. This was more than a fight for survival. This was about everything they stood for, about reclaiming the pieces of their lives that Daud had shattered. Stay with me. Khalid urged, desperation lacing his tone, dragging her towards the door. They pushed through the crowd, surrounded by chaos, bodies colliding as fear warped into pure survival instinct. Bina's gaze bounced from faces masked in terror to those twisted by anger. Some shrieked for help while others lashed out in rage. Daud's henchmen surged forward, teeth bared like wolves hungry for blood, but then, like a bolt of lightning striking through a dark sky, Bina found her voice. Stop! She roared, amplifying her presence. The words tumbled out like a dam bursting, firm and unwavering. This ends here and now. Heads turned towards her. For a brief moment, a silence swept across the room, each person caught between fear and the flicker of a chance for change. Together, she shouted, her heart thundering. We can stand against him. Stand for those lost. For the future we deserve. Khalid's grip tightened around her, a burst of fierce determination igniting between them. Fight alongside us. He called out, his voice ringing with newfound strength. Slowly, people began to assemble behind them, a hesitant army forging against the tide. Bina could feel the shift in energy, fear transforming into defiance. They seized the moment, locking eyes with Daud, firm in their resolve. He was no longer merely a shadow looming over them, he was a beast to conquer. Daud's expression morphed from confidence to fury, his facade cracking under the weight of their unified stand. Fools! He spat, rage dripping from every syllable. You think you can stand against me? This isn't just your game anymore. Bina shouted back, the words resonating through the air, grounding her amidst the turmoil. Your time ends tonight. A moment of high tension snapped. Daud motioned to his men, and the crowd flinched, but Bina held her ground, pulling strength from Khalid and the people beside her. We choose truth, and you will answer for your actions. Jonas surged forward, his stature imposing amidst the chaos, joining them as the first wave to rise against Daud and his minions. We are done cowering. We will expose you. And in that fleeting second, the tide truly turned. Emotions surged, passion ignited, and the collective strength of those assembled rallied behind Bina. They surged forward, a wave crashing against Daud's power. Fists swung, voices ignited, and a stand was finally taken. Just as the clash began, a noise like thunder rolled through the room, a symphony of chaos echoing against the marble and crystal. Bina felt herself flying forward, adrenaline rushing through her veins, matching the heartbeat of the masses behind her, but amidst the fight, amid the shouts and the fury, there was something deeper, a sense of liberation, a call to the truth they had buried for too long. In the heart of the chaos, surrounded by those who now fought for a single heartbeat, she felt the warmth of solidarity. The fight intensified, but beneath the visceral turmoil, there lay the heartbeat of a people ready to reclaim their lives and the power to take back their truth. Each strike was a blow against years of oppression. Each shout resonated with a revolutionary promise that rippled through the crowd. Together, they cried. After what felt like an eternity, the tide shifted. Daud's grip faltered, his army overwhelmed by the truth emboldened in each voice. And as the last push of courage surged forward, Daud stumbled back, eyes wild with disbelief. In that electric moment, hope triumphantly outshone despair. The truth had emerged from the shadows, shimmering with unexpected light. Khalid stood close beside Bina, their hands still intertwined, a promise solidified in that fierce connection. We did it! Bina shouted, her voice echoing through the remnants of chaos. They had awoken something that lay dormant for far too long, an unshakable spirit, a shared resilience. The hush of disbelief fell over the room as they basked in their newfound strength. The night receded, but the stars shone bright beyond the mansion. They had forged ahead, defiant and resolute, ready to rebuild from the ashes. Just as dawn began to break on a new day, Bina felt it in her bones. They were the architects of their own destiny. As the dust settled around them, they stood together, wounded but stronger, ready to turn the page. Before anyone could speak, Bina raised her hand to quiet the room. Now, we fight for the future. Let this be the dawn of a new era. And with that, the room erupted into cheers, a symphony of voices echoing their victory over darkness, a testament of their fearless choice to stand together. This was their new beginning, a fearless community rising from the shadows, stepping confidently into their truth. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will continue this journey. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm with the energy we need, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. You're part of this adventure. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to unite.